Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, is widely regarded as one of the most influential figures in American history. Serving 4 terms in office from 1933 to 1945, Roosevelt led the nation through the Great Depression and World War II, 2 of the most significant crises in modern history. His leadership, characterized by a blend of optimism, pragmatism, and political skill, reshaped the role of the federal government and left a lasting impact on the nation's domestic and foreign policies. Born on January 30, 1882, in Hyde Park, New York, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a descendant of old Dutch and English colonial families. His father, James Roosevelt, was a wealthy landowner, and his mother, Sarah Delano Roosevelt, was a strong and controlling figure in his life. Roosevelt was educated at prestigious institutions, beginning with Groton School and later attending Harvard University, where he graduated in 1903. He then studied law at Columbia University but did not complete his degree, choosing instead to pursue a career in public service. Roosevelt's entry into politics began with his appointment as a New York State Senator in 1911. He quickly gained a reputation as a progressive reformer, supporting labor rights and anti-corruption measures. His political career took a significant step forward in 1913 when President Woodrow Wilson appointed him Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Roosevelt excelled in this role, helping to modernize the Navy and becoming a prominent advocate for naval preparedness, particularly during World War I. His experience in the Navy and his growing political profile set the stage for his future ambitions. In 1920, Roosevelt was selected as the Democratic vice presidential candidate, running alongside James M. Cox. Although the ticket lost in a landslide to Warren G. Harding and Calvin Coolidge, Roosevelt's performance on the campaign trail bolstered his national reputation. In 1928, Roosevelt was elected governor of New York, a position that would serve as a springboard for his presidential aspirations. As governor, he faced the severe economic challenges of the Great Depression, which had begun to affect the nation by 1929. Roosevelt implemented a series of progressive policies aimed at relief, recovery, and reform. He expanded the state's social programs, improved public infrastructure, and introduced measures to aid the unemployed, setting the stage for the broader New Deal programs he would later implement as president. In 1921, at the age of 39, Roosevelt was struck by polio, which left him permanently paralyzed from the waist down. Despite this personal setback, Roosevelt refused to let his disability define him. He became an inspiration for many, not only overcoming his physical challenges but also continuing to build his political career. He spent several years recovering at his family's estate in Hyde Park, where he gained strength, both physically and mentally, and began to refocus on his political goals. Roosevelt was elected president in 1932 at the height of the Great Depression, with a promise of bold action to restore the nation's economic health. His first 100 days in office were marked by an unprecedented flurry of legislative activity, which became known as the First New Deal. Roosevelt worked with Congress to pass a series of programs aimed at providing relief to the unemployed, stabilizing the financial system, and stimulating economic recovery. Key initiatives included the creation of the Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC, the Public Works Administration, PWA, and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, which sought to protect bank deposits and restore public confidence in the banking system. In 1935, Roosevelt introduced the Second New Deal, which expanded upon the earlier programs and focused on long-term reforms, such as the Social Security Act, which established a system of pensions for the elderly and unemployment insurance. These initiatives were designed to provide a safety net for vulnerable Americans and prevent future economic crises. Roosevelt's approach to the Depression was transformative, increasing the scope and influence of the federal government in American life. The outbreak of World War II in Europe in 1939 and the eventual US entry into the war following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 marked a defining period of Roosevelt's presidency. Roosevelt's leadership during the war was critical in both mobilizing the American economy for war production and in forging key alliances with Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and China. As the commander-in-chief, he coordinated the Allied war effort, meeting with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin at several key conferences to strategize the defeat of the Axis powers. Roosevelt's leadership was instrumental in the development of the Lend-Lease program, which provided critical military and economic assistance to Allied nations before the US formally entered the war. At the same time, he ensured that the US military was prepared to fight on multiple fronts, overseeing the largest mobilization in American history. By the time of his re-election in 1944, Roosevelt's health had begun to decline, and he appeared increasingly frail. Despite his physical challenges, he won a fourth term, becoming the only US president to do so. However, he would not live to see the end of the war. Franklin D. Roosevelt died on April 12, 1945, while at his retreat in Warm Springs, Georgia. His death came just months before the end of World War II, leaving his successor, Harry S. Truman, to oversee the final stages of the conflict and the subsequent post-war reconstruction. Roosevelt's legacy is multifaceted. He transformed the U.S. government, expanding the role of the federal government in economic and social matters, and reshaped the relationship between the U.S. and the world. The New Deal programs that he implemented not only helped pull the nation out of the Depression, but also laid the foundation for the modern welfare state. His leadership during World War II helped secure victory for the Allies and establish the U.S. as a global superpower. Despite the challenges and controversies of his presidency, including opposition from conservative critics and tensions over his court-packing plan, Roosevelt's vision for a more active, interventionist government has left a lasting imprint on American political life. Today, he is remembered as one of the most transformative presidents in U.S. history.